We've got about 10 minutes before our break, and so I want to give you all the opportunity to ask our speakers any questions. Jonathan has a microphone. If anyone has a question, I'll ask him to bring the microphone to you. And if you want to just generally ask it, or if you have a particular speaker you'd like to address it to.
I don't even know where to start. I made a list of things about the concerns that I have regarding what you guys are addressing right here, and I think it's important. I lived in Boston for 2 years without a vehicle, relied on public transportation and walking. It's a very dense city, consequently you can get around pretty easily, but any city that has these nodes of places, you don't really have to go too far outside to utilize these if it's planned properly. One of the concerns I have is, and I see it here in Oklahoma all the time, we plan something, we don't maintain it. We continue to expand these issues, but we don't have a plan to take care of them. And so what we think on the screen looks beautiful today, in 5 years, it's trash. You can go down to the pedestrian bridge. It's a terrible place to go because it doesn't get maintained. And how do you see these improvements being maintained? And you know, when your kids are going to school in the dark on a trail, how do you keep them safe if nobody is changing the light bulbs? Or how do you keep them safe if nobody is taking care of the vegetation along the route? How do you do that?
Great question. Who wants to tackle that one?
I think one of the keys is doubling down on the places where you can make that impact, on the walkable urban places that exist already today, and making that concerted effort to make those great, to have a constituency that then begins to maintain them. And then I think you will leave it to another speaker that you have coming in this afternoon who will talk to you about perhaps not expanding further and adding more liabilities to our balance sheets going forward, so that we're not drawn in a different direction, but we can actually refocus on these centers, on these places that we know and love and care about, that are here in Tulsa, that everyone knows the name of the places. I don't know, I was introduced to Utica Square the first time I came here as a great place to go, walk around. There are places where you can double down on the investment and give people access to them, safe access to their schools, co-locate their schools in places where you want to double down on that infrastructure, and make great places.
I would also say, sorry, Sean, I would also say that I think it's important. I think you make a really important point, and I think it's important when those facilities are put in to have a very clear conversation with whatever agency is doing that about what is the management plan. And I would say, I think that picture that Ren put up of ODOT saying that they are too busy to apply for a pedestrian safety grant speaks volumes to me. So I think there's another aspect here, which is, can we organize and get your community involved to speak to the people that are in power and say, this is a priority for us. A pedestrian safety grant is a priority, or changing the light bulbs on the trail. I mean, that's a perfect example. That is a priority for us. So how can we start out at the beginning to make sure that the maintenance is in the agreement? Because you're right, if we build something and we let it go in 5 years, then it was a waste. It was a long-term waste of taxpayer dollars, and it also becomes a liability, it becomes a danger. So making that commitment in the beginning that it will be maintained. And there are people that are out there that are willing to help you in all of those agencies. It's a matter of making it known to them that it's a priority. And I'll just put this out there personally. I may regret this, but I got to Oklahoma 2 months ago, goodness, and I've been told by several people that walking and biking just isn't going to have any traction here. And so I kept asking, because I spent 7 years of my life in California studying traffic risk, and I feel very passionate about it, especially having made it through Texas without killing anyone with my car when I was a raging hormonal teenager. And I've talked to a lot more people, and I've heard, no, we care, people here care. So I'm going to be taking this on as I want to understand traffic risk in Oklahoma, so contact me if you have a concern, and I will try to help you. I hope I don't regret saying that, but I actually hope that you do contact me, because I feel very passionate about it, and I know that there are people in power that do. And I think that when you can kind of connect those dots, then those changes can be made, and that vision can be, sort of put into practice, because you make an excellent point.
Let's just take it.
And just like I asked you all the question, you know, don't I get asked all the time, isn't it too dangerous? Well, what's more important to me is that we ask the question, what type of a society do we want to live in, and what type of a legacy do we want to leave for our children? And I know that it is all about leadership. I mean, that is absolutely the word. And without having proper advocacy from the citizens that this is what we want, the leadership may not understand that the citizens are truly committed to making these cultural changes. Cultural changes tend to happen very slowly, stultifyingly slowly, and then all of a sudden, you know, I mean, all of a sudden, it's like you look around downtown Tulsa, there's bikes and pedestrians everywhere. And from having lived in many other places in the United States, one other comment that I'd just like to make to answer your question is the citizens have to be willing to invest, and ultimately a more progressive tax structure would probably be part of that solution as well.
All right, we probably have time for one more question. Carlos.
Rand, I think you probably answered my question before I asked it, and it was about advocacy. You mentioned that the design of our city is a reflection of our values. The design of our city is powered by our budget, and when we spend over 600 million of the 900 million tax package that we just passed this past November, 2/3 of it was on widening streets and repaving streets. So we've spent 2/3 of our tax money putting asphalt on the ground, and 36 million of that was for 1 mile stretch of road. So how do we, and how especially do low-income communities, such as the one I live in, it's near at 61st and Peoria, how do low-income communities advocate for the types of neighborhoods that they want? Like, what do you see as the pathway for that? I just wrote an article that about the widening of Peoria between 61st and 71st. So that's another 1 mile stretch of road, and we have the opportunity to either make a huge positive impact or make a huge mistake. And I'd like to see us not make a huge mistake.
Would anyone else actually like to? I mean, is this just, okay, I mean, I feel like you all know the answers to this. Number one is personal action, your habits and your behaviors. And number two is connectivity through your own community. And, you know, Tulsa, Oklahoma is a very large, sprawling city that lacks the current infrastructure. I find that there's an awesome online advocacy community. You can get on the internet, and it seems to be clear that the citizens are interested in, you know, the leadership investing in some of these cultural changes, showing up and being present. There's no alternative to the power of being able to show up and be present. And for low-income people, you know, leadership and community organizing is a huge, huge part of the picture. So I ask all of you as leaders in the room to ask yourselves what you might do to be a leader in your community, and to reach out to people, to organizations. Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, for example, would be a great place to start, of which I am typically too busy with the Tulsa Hub to engage, but some of the leadership is right over here. You guys can wave. And does anyone have any other suggestion? Yeah, okay.
Well, what about what Sean showed, which is that presenting a different vision? Because I think pictures are really powerful, and just the work that he showed of his students, where you sort of look at what this could look like, and even what Ian was talking about, the IQC has done, where you go in and you just do temporary. I'm a big fan of temporary installations because there's no harm in trying something, right? And it's very, very cheap. And what we learned in the Bay Area and what other places have done as well is that sometimes, I mean, New York, that every change that they made started out as just paint on the ground and a planter. And then when it was popular enough, they poured the concrete. So if you can get people to give you the space to try something, to just see it, or if that won't happen, even just presenting a different vision, that can be very powerful, and it can catalyze a different thinking and sort of social engagement that Ren is talking about.
The founder of Safe Routes to School, Jim Oberstar, said, "Nothing that is worth doing shall be accomplished in one's own lifetime. We have to think about the generations that are coming behind us." And that is going to be my broken record for any more work that I continue to do through Tulsa Hub, et cetera.
A thread that runs through all of these, in response to your question, is start. I mean, even if it's small, even if it's hosting a meeting or the kitchen table talk, doing something. So not just talking, but meeting and doing and trying something, experimenting, so on and so forth. I think that's what I took away from them. I'm not saying that. I'm interpreting.
And I just want to close by saying you can visit the studio's website or the Tulsa Hub for more information. And we don't have it on this slide, but the Institute has a website as well. But all of the projects that I showed you examples from are in our archive. You can download them online, and you can use some of what we've done, or you can come and talk to us about partnering with us. All of the projects that we do at the studio are service learning projects for the students. And so we're always interested in ways that we can work with the community. And I would just end by saying that we really are fortunate here in that we have the community health, public health part of it involved. And a lot of communities are struggling to get to that point.
Let's give them a hand one more time.